How much can an iconic prop from a slasher film get you at the gold and silver pawn shop? How about a ticket stub signed by a depressed boxer? Keep watching to find out. In the Season 10 episode Captain Rick, a man named Jeff brings in what he describes as a really old and hopefully really expensive coin, which he found while cleaning out his grandmother's house. The brassy medallion bears the image of King George III of England on one side, with the message "Sailed from England 1772" and a pair of ships named the Resolution and the Adventure on the reverse. Rick identifies those as the ships of famed 18th century English explorer and navigator Captain James Cook, one of the first Europeans to set foot in Hawaii and many other Pacific islands.
Okay, you know who he was?
Was he the pirate from Peter Pan or something?
Wrong dude.
Speculating that this medallion may be a cheap replica made for gift shops, Rick calls in David Vagey of NGC Ancients, a local coin expert. Vagey identifies the item as being of historical significance, claiming that Cook had struck only 2,000 of these medals, and they were given to native leaders in the Pacific Islands on his voyages as a token of esteem. Jeff's medal was held by Captain Cook himself in 1772, and Vagey estimated its value at auction at somewhere between $7,500 and $8,500. Before he came into the shop, Jeff thought he might get $50 to $100, but he walked out $5,000 richer. Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson are two of the most famous boxers of all time. When they were both young amateurs, they participated in the 1984 Summer Olympics held in Los Angeles. Holyfield was competing for the U.S. as a light heavyweight, while Tyson was an alternate without much to do except warm the bench. Boxing superfan Bill described how Tyson's head was despondent and took him out to lunch to raise his spirits. Bill got Tyson to sign his ticket stub from one of the Olympic matches and then managed to get Holyfield to sign it too. When Bill presents the double autograph relic at the gold and silver pawn shop, he wants $500 for it. Corey Harrison calls in Steve Grad, the principal authenticator at Beckett Authentication Services, to verify the item. After analyzing the ink and comparing the signatures to other old Tyson and Holyfield autographs, Grad declares the stub a winner and stakes its value around $2,000. While Corey offers Bill $1,000 for the item, the two guys reach an impasse, and Bill walks away without selling, deciding to frame the ticket instead. In a 2020 episode, a man named Dennis was looking to sell off an old, well-preserved long gun, one that leaves Rick and Corey Harrison scratching their heads over its true worth. Corey is only able to identify the French origins of the firearm, whereas Rick immediately realizes they have a Boutet rifle on their hands. Describing the gunsmith as a Rembrandt of guns and the first gunsmith to really combine function and artistry, Rick elaborates that Boutet catered to the wealthiest customers in the late 1700s and early 1800s. Dennis wants $10,000 for his treasure, but before offering any amount, the Harrisons call in Alex Cranmer, CEO of International Military Antiques, to assess the value. A visibly excited Cranmer describes Boutet as the official gunsmith of French King Louis XVI and later Emperor Napoleon. After admiring the rifle's detail and ornamentation and giving it a try on a shooting range, he estimates his potential auction selling price at $30,000. Dennis ups his asking price to $20,000, but Rick eventually talks him down to $16,000.
I now own a fine Boutet. Not that I haven't always had one.
It took you 50-something years to get one.
In a Season 10 episode of Pawn Stars, a guy named John enters the gold and silver pawn looking to sell off an item that he won in a card game. It's an encased 1922 stamped silver dollar peace emblem coin. While John asks for $20,000 for his coin, Rick Harrison immediately calls in an expert, declaring the piece one of the holy grails of American coins. David Vagey of NGC Ancients arrives to inform Rick and John that this particular coin was struck in 1921, part of a campaign to bring back the silver dollar. This coin is significant due to its extra high-relief matte finish and tremendous detail. However, these same details were also its downfall, as it was too difficult to produce this design in large quantities. Most of the original run never circulated and was apparently melted down, leaving just a few in existence a century later. Vagey notes that a coin in slightly better shape had recently sold for more than $100,000, and he estimates the value of John's coin at somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000. After some haggling, a pained Harrison buys the coin off John for $80,000. A man named Jody enters the gold and silver pawn, claiming that he inherited some personal effects from his late grandfather, which included a gold coin bearing the royal crest of Spain. According to Rick Harrison, this is a 1715 Spanish fleet coin, specifically a Lima Escudo, minted in Peru. Made from gold mined by indigenous slaves during Imperial Spain's colonial occupation of South America, the piece is hardly uniform, as things like purity and weight of the gold were far more important. Rick considers the coin exceptional and finds that it consists of 27 grams of pure gold. Jody wants $2,000 for the heirloom, but since the market had recently been awash in fake Spanish fleet pieces, Harrison brings in his Spanish colonial coin expert, a guy named Carl. Carl's analysis finds it to be absolutely genuine and worth around $18,000, saying the coin was likely part of King Philip V's personal stash. After some negotiation, Jody persuades Rick to pay him $11,000 for it. Probably the most famous part of the 1960 Alfred Hitchcock film Psycho is the iconic scene in which a criminal on the lam, played by Janet Leigh, is brutally murdered in a motel shower by the disturbed Norman Bates, portrayed by Anthony Perkins. The production certainly went through a few bathroom-related props, like shower curtains, and a plastic one found its way into the gold and silver pawn shop on a season 13 episode of Pawn Stars.
It's kind of creepy.
It's even creepier because it's signed by Anthony Perkins.
The basketball player?
A man named Mark explained that he won it in a contest in San Diego and got it autographed by Perkins in blood red ink after he gave a speech about directing Psycho 3 in 1986. Mark ideally wants $400 to part with the curtain, but won't go any lower than $300. Those terms seem reasonable to Rick Harrison, but to confirm its value, he calls in authenticator Steve Gratt. The expert confirms that the item was indeed signed by Perkins. He puts its value in the area of $800 to $1,000, more than double Mark's asking price. After a little haggling, Rick agrees to buy it from Mark for $500. Robbie the Robot became one of the most familiar and iconic mechanical men in all of pop culture after its first appearance in the 1956 sci-fi movie Forbidden Planet. Designed in 1955 for MGM by artist Robert Kinoshita, Robbie would eventually appear in more than 24 movies and TV shows, including The Twilight Zone and The Addams Family. A client named Stanley pops into the gold and silver pawn shop carrying a Robbie the Robot toy from the mid-20th century, still in its original box. As Stanley explains to Corey Harrison and Chumley, the toy procured at an estate sale was produced in Japan and is labeled Mechanized Robot because MGM wouldn't license out the rights to make name-brand replicas. Stanley wants $2,000 for the toy in box, but skeptical of its authenticity, Corey brings in Johnny, an expert on old toys and owner of the Toy Shack. Johnny likes what he sees. The robot still works, and his battery compartment doesn't show any signs of corrosion. Citing the big secondary market for such nostalgic toys, Johnny figures the robot's value at $2,200, more than Stanley's dream price. After some countering, Harrison buys the toy for $1,100. A young man named Kevin heads into the gold and silver pawn shop on a season 17 episode to inquire about selling a helmet he bought at an estate sale. The former football player thought the item was reminiscent of a simple helmet from the sport's early days, but after some research, found out that it's probably an iron battle helmet from the Anglo-Saxon era of European history. Chumley agrees that the metal helmet could be up to 1,400 years old. Made from thin iron and weighing between 5 to 8 pounds, the helmet is called the Spangenhelm, German for metal strip helmet. Kevin hopes to get $750 for the piece, but since Chumley has no idea what it's worth, he brings in Bob Dodge of Artemis Testing Lab. Dodge notes how remarkable it is that the thing lasted for more than a millennium without oxidizing into dust. He uses an X-ray gun to determine that it's made from the era-specific carbon steel and suggests the 1 in a million item belongs in a museum, and it's worth about $15,000. Chumley and Kevin ultimately brought it down to $10,000. A woman named April seeks to sell an old relic, needing money for moving expenses and a big screen TV. She knows she's got something pretty valuable during her visit to the gold and silver pawn shop in a 2010 episode, presenting her 1602 shipwrecked Dutch East India Company bell to Rick and his father, old man Richard Harrison. Richard is instantly skeptical that the item is worth much, or even came from a shipwreck, claiming it lacks enough corrosion to have been in salt water for any lengthy period of time. It would have been good for business had the Harrisons made a nominal offer for the bell, since after they called in their expert Carl to evaluate the bell, they determined it to be a genuine relic of the Dutch East India Company, which dominated world trade for over 2 centuries. Carl explains 90% of shipwrecks occur in shallow water, and it is highly likely natives easily removed this bell and brought it ashore. Citing its worthiness of being in a treasure auction catalog, Carl cites a cash value of $15,000. While Richard only offers a measly $3,000 for the bell, Rick eventually haggles with April to settle at $7,200. While the House of Fabergé, famous for its Fabergé eggs, was the most prestigious jeweler in 1800s Imperial Russia, its main competitor was the equally impressive House of Bolin. According to Craig Gottlieb of Craig Gottlieb Military Antiques, that's who manufactured a medal that came across the display cases at the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop in a 2014 episode. Rick Harrison offers a substantial sum of $6,000 to the client who brought in the White Eagle medallion, thought to be a centuries-old gem-studded Polish piece. Gottlieb explains it's not really Polish, but Russian. In 1795, Poland was partitioned into segments ruled by Prussia, Austria, and Russia, and the latter took the White Eagle symbol of a Polish order founded in 1325 and combined with the Russian two-headed eagle.
It's a really neat, this is 800 years of history here. This medal shows just how hard Poland's had it for the past 800 years.
Gottlieb says the medallion was likely forged in St. Petersburg, and that it's worth $30,000 to $40,000. Harrison's original offer for the medal was far under its actual worth, and the new estimate forces him to offer a lot more than he expected. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about Pawn Stars are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.